right, everybody, welcome back to Recalibrate. On today's show, Mark Atherton, owner of On Your Mark Graphics out of Murrieta, California, a shop that's been grinding for almost 3 decades, 28 years of keeping small businesses alive. And, you know, it's the kind of craftsmanship you just don't find anymore. It's that professionalism. It's that personal touch. You know, definitely not the stuff you're going to see with AI made in 12 seconds type of stuff. You know, it's 2 people, 1 shop. Mark is not just a graphic designer. He's a builder. He's a visionary. He's a problem solver. And one of those guys who shows up every single day and just executes. Okay, so today we're digging into the man behind the designs, how he built his business, what keeps him moving, the lessons he's learned across, you know, almost 3 decades of staying relevant. And, you know, we're gonna talk a little bit about AI, creativity, dive into some other areas. Okay, but this is the direction we're gonna go. So without further ado, Mark, brother, welcome to Recalibrate.
Leon, thank you. Appreciate that. One of the things I wanted to touch on today, I know we had spoken about where we're going to go with this conversation, was where I'm from. I do live in Murrieta now, but this whole business was built and executed in Silicon Valley, California. Northern California, for people that don't know that, it's basically a little bit broader, but most of Silicon Valley is from San Francisco down to San Jose, with Palo Alto, San Mateo, Redwood City in between. And that is the land of opportunity. That is, in my opinion, like no place in the world ever. There's more billionaires that live there. And all the huge companies that you hear of are all there. That's where their home office is.
Yeah.
And it really is the land of opportunity. And I was fortunate enough that I wasn't born in some cow pasture, or I'd be, you know, driving a milk truck or milking cows, which is not necessarily bad living if you can make a good living at it. But working high tech is kind of where things are going.
Yeah.
So
Without a doubt. So, all right. So we'll give a little bit of background. First off, you know, you're from the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, but what was little Mark like? You know, what's the family life before that brought you up before you start working?
I was very fortunate. My father was a Stanford attorney. He met my mother, who was a Stanford nurse, and I had 3 sisters, and we were brought up in a small town called Los Altos, which became one of the most expensive places to live in the United States.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know, orchards when I was there. It was before Silicon Valley really erupted. And so I was just brought up in a normal family. Like I said, 3 sisters, a dad and a mom. Unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was only 14. And my dad was left to, you know, raise 4 kids and try to keep his law practice above ground. But it was nice, and little by little, I didn't realize it, but where I grew up was becoming Silicon Valley, and
so yeah, it definitely wasn't. I mean, what you described and what people know it now. I mean, the Apple, the Oracles, the Google, and
Facebook,
you know, Tesla started there,
Tesla,
right?
Everything,
just all the absolute tech giants. It definitely wasn't that when little Mark's running around. But as you start to, I guess, like college age, and you start to go to school and figure out what you want to do in life, did you stay in that region the entire time? Like, what was your first job?
Oh, my first job was like any kid. I was a dishwasher at a Charlie Brown's restaurant, and then I became a busboy, and then, you know, I worked in grocery stores, and then I went off to college. I worked in grocery stores at college, and as a senior in college, because I know there's a lot of kids out there that they don't know what they want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And finally, my senior year, my best friend was a fireman. I said, man, I want to be a fireman. That was the first time I ever wanted to do something for a career. And so I dropped out my senior year at college at Cal Poly. My dad, a Stanford lawyer, you know, lost a few nights of sleep on that. But I immediately enrolled in fire science school, and I got a 3-year fire science degree. I became a volunteer fireman and an EMT. Then I took Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 test through the state, got those certificates. But unfortunately for me, that was the start of affirmative action. And that basically, if you were a white man, you were really, really up against it.
Uphill battle, yeah.
It was an uphill battle. I tried for 8 years. I remember my dad gave me some advice because I told him, I said, this is bad news with all this affirmative action. They just wanted to hire minorities and women to even out the ranks. Mm-hmm. And so I was in a bad spot. My dad said there's two ways of looking at it. He goes, don't put all your eggs in one basket. But if you do, just keep your eye on that basket. Go for it. So that's what I did. I kept my eye on the basket. I just kept trying. And boy, do I have some bad luck stories. I had some luck go against me that you can't even believe. You could not even believe. Like, I was hired and then it slipped through my fingers. So it is what it is. I don't know if you want me to expand on that.
Well, so
we can get back to it.
Yeah, we can zero back around. But what I know, like we've talked extensively on, what brought you to the point and to your success that you have today. And, you mentioned the grocery store thing. And one of the stories that I love hearing from you, number one, I think there's a lot of people out there who can relate to it, but they don't act on it the way you did. And you talked about working at grocery stores. So, okay, pursuing the fire side, the fire career doesn't work out. What do you do after that? And I want you to lead everybody into the story that you've shared with me, specifically with Alpha Beta.
I can't remember the specific story about Alpha Beta, but
the boss.
What did he say? I had a lot of bosses.
The one that chews your butt.
Oh yeah, Roger Newfield. I had a crazy boss, and he used to wear this heart monitor on his chest because he gets so pumped up. And this is before you couldn't act like that at work. There was no HR team. Bosses could scream and yell, and this guy did. And he just go nuts. And one time I heard his heart monitor go off, and I just saw him screaming and yelling and clutching his heart, yelling at some guy. And and he yelled at me, and I the first time, and I went home that night, and I think I was maybe 24, and I decided that night no one's ever going to treat me like that again. Like, okay, you caught me off guard. I'm not scared of you. You're not going to do that again. And no one will do that. And I said, the only one that gets a mulligan's my dad. My dad can still yell at me. Mm-hmm. And so he tried maybe a couple months later, and I barked right back at him, and he never did that again. He understood I was going to stand my ground. But if you let someone intimidate you, they'll keep coming back to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, was that a turning point? Like, at this point you had already gone through the,
No. So I was still in fire science school and this and that. I was still just working. Basically, what happened is when I was 29, I moved and I had to give up on the fire department for a lot of reasons. But I gave up on it. I had tried for 6-7 years. It wasn't looking good. And I'd had just too much heartbreak when I thought I was going to get hired, and I didn't. So I just went and got a job at a grocery store, and I met my wife, and I was just happy. We were just there. We were both working. We were both happy. But in the back of my mind, I knew I needed a career. And so that's when Silicon Valley, when I was about 34, started hearing things from people like, man, did you hear about that Cisco Systems? Their stock doubled again, and the whole floor retired. Everyone. Janitors, everyone retired. And and then you started hearing about people that were getting stock options that were hired, and people were very excited about this. And I said, well, I got to go. That's what I'll do. I got to go get a high tech job because high tech was on the rise. I don't even think they had the iPhone yet. And so as a matter of fact, I know they didn't have the iPhone. This is like 94.
I was going to say you're mid to late 90s at this point.
This is like, 94. Yeah. So I thought to myself, I'm not going back to school. I did all those years at Cal Poly. I did the fire science. I can't go back to school and retrain myself. I'm a talker. That's who I am. I'm going to get in sales. And so I went to a job fair and they were headhunters. I said, what the hell's a headhunter? I saw that in Gilligan's Island. They go, well, they're just people that find you jobs. I said, well, were they expensive? No, they don't cost you anything. Really? Because they get paid by the employer. You're free. So I went to this job fair, and this lady approached me. She said, you looking for a job? I said, yeah. She goes, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm a produce man with a fire science degree. Think you can sell me to someone? Literally, I kid you not. So she sent me to Boise Cascade, where they gave me a written test and they said I failed. Okay. Then the very next interview, she sent me to a place called Chromacopy Imaging, which was run by a lady. They were a large print shop out of San Francisco, also working in San Jose. And the owner of Chromacopy Imaging, who I became very good friends with, she says, she told the headhunter, we'll give you $6,000 for the produce boy with the fire science degree. And that's true. That's how hot it was back then, that they actually paid someone, for a produce man and a fire science degree to sell graphics. Well, I mean, no experience whatsoever.
They saw or heard something they liked. It wasn't just...
But that was also the time of the day. Back then people were just going crazy, So that's how I got started. I worked for them for 3 years, learned the business, and I got to give credit to one guy because my eyes were wide shut. Mm-hmm. And hopefully if someone listens to this and gets interested, I can open your eyes, because I didn't know I was walking around with my eyes shut. My biggest client was this guy named Sean, and he was deep into Cisco. He was making millions off them, taking care of all their trade shows, and I was selling him the graphics. And he looked at me one day, he says, what are you doing? You're an idiot. I go, what do you mean? I go, thank you, but what do you mean? And he said, he goes, how many of your clients know anyone at your work? He goes, all I know is you, because you come to me. I said, none of my clients know anyone at my work. I'm in outside sales. I go to my clients. So I would go to him. I would go to Hewlett Packard, the XYZ companies, all these companies. Some of them are around, some of them aren't. And I said, so they don't know anyone? He goes, Mark, you're a moron. He goes, they're working with you. They're not working with your company. They don't even know your company. They know you, and you say you're going to deliver this. And so they're trusting you and giving you this $30,000 job, not knowing anyone in your company. They're working with you, Mark. He goes, you should be a broker. And if you're still listening out there and you're not sure what you're going to do, listen to what I have to say about being a broker, because it's available to anyone and there's no startup fee. You don't need any money to be a broker. You just say, I'm a broker. Then all you need is an order and you're in business. So that's what I did. I quit this job. I went to all my clients and I said, hey, I'm thinking about going on my own. I'm going to call it On Your Mark Graphics. Would you still work with me? No one said no. Everyone said yes.
Really?
Because they only knew me.
So how many? Well, that makes a ton of sense. As you're saying it, I never really thought like that. But as you're saying it and you're talking about Sean's advice, it just immediately clicked. Like, oh, I know exactly what this guy's going to say, and that makes total sense.
Yeah. So I went to my first of all, Sean had a deal for me. My first month, he goes, I'll pay you $30,000 to work with me. He literally paid me $30,000. We had to fly to Orlando for a week, paid for the hotel, the airfare, food, and then, $30,000 on top of that. And then we had to come home, print some more, go to San Diego. That was for these two big Cisco jobs. And he was charging $1 million. So it was a drop in the bucket, but I made $30,000 that month, my first month in business. And then I went to, if you ever remember Palm Computing.
Yeah.
Palm was my second biggest. They were making the Palm pilots, and handheld phones and stuff. They were early smartphones. And I went to my client and I said, hey, if I go out on my own, would you still work with me? And she said, yes. And a lot of these companies, they have budgets that they have to use by the end of the quarter or the year, the fiscal year. And if they don't use it, well, you didn't need 200,000 last year. You had 40 left over. So we're only going to give you 120 because you got your 40 left over and you spent 160. So they all use their budget. So she said to me, she goes, yeah, we'll use you. Can you charge me $60,000 right now? Send me an invoice for $60,000 and we'll just have credit. So I started my first month of business with $30,000 from Sean and $60,000 from Palm. I started at $90,000. That was fortunate. That was very fortunate. But that was the times in Silicon Valley.
But even, the times are different now, but like you were alluding to, somebody who is in a similar spot like you, who's out there, who's working and breaking their back for a bigger broker or a bigger company, could essentially follow the same model. I mean, you make it sound, almost like it was simple to walk away, but I mean, was there other types of resistance? I mean, the financial side sounds like you got lucky right out of the gate. Fortunate right out of the gate. But were there any other doubts? Were you walking away like, holy shit, like, did you have the equipment that...
Well, I failed to mention my wife was pregnant when I told her I was going to quit my job and start my own company. So that was I said, look, Sean's giving me 30. I got 60 coming. We're going to do this. Everyone says they're on board. We're going to make more money, because basically I was making 10% of what I sold. And then when I went out on my own, I was making more like 50% of what I sold, because I'd have, if I sold something for $100, I would buy it off a company for 50, and then I would sell it for 100 to my client. So but if I sold that 100 and I was working, I'd only get 10% from my company. So it was a huge, huge thing. But when you go out on your own, anytime you start a business, and this is really important for anyone that's thinking about starting a business, you have to ask yourself, what is the barrier to entry? That's the huge thing. What is the barrier to entry? Okay, for me.
Well, hold on. What exactly do you mean by that?
Okay, that's what I'm going to say. Well, let's just say you want to start a grocery store.
Okay.
Well, you better have some money. You got to run a shopping. You got to get employees. I mean, that's a barrier. Okay, if you want to start a CNC routing, well, you're going to have to run a shop. You're going to have to buy a CNC router or rent a CNC router. You have to get electrical done, and that's a barrier. This is money that it's going to cost you. Mm-hmm. You need a license. You need this. But there's a ton of jobs that brokers can do that there is no barrier to entry. So for me, there was nothing. I was working out of my house. I was waiting for someone to email me saying, I need, 30 posters and 15 banners. And then that was it. I would just go to all these there's a lot of manufacturers, and I go around, and they knew I had a lot of work. So they were happy to see me. And I would say, hey, print these 15 posters and 30 banners, whatever the job was. They'd say, okay, that's $6,000. They gave me a discount because I was a broker, right? I'm getting trade pricing. I would take that $6,000 that I paid them, and I would go sell it for $10,000 to my client. And they're used to paying $10,000. That's end user. So I would make $4,000, and I'm working out of my house. And there was nothing. I mean, you had to get a business license. It's $125 or whatever it was. But that's what I'm talking about, barrier to entry.
Okay.
So people that want to do things, they have to think about, the first thing you have to think about, barrier. Do I have the money to do this? I want to say something about this. So I was a broker, and I was already selling this stuff. So anyone could, it's your job. You got to look and say, I've learned this job. Could I start this business myself? And what is the barrier to entry? Mm-hmm. Oh, like I've learned this dentist stuff. Yeah, you're not a dentist. You got to have dentist school, but that may be not a good example. But you might need a lot of equipment the guy's already got. But let me give you an example. What if, say, for instance, Leon, you worked and you sold, anything, upholstery to car shops around here.
Okay.
And you're up and down Northern California. And I go, where do you buy your upholstery from, Leon? And you go, well, I buy it out of Tennessee. There's a bunch of mills, but I'm working with this one. Okay. Well, as your friend, I could go, Leon's buying $3 million worth of upholstery a year. Why don't I call up one of another mill? Say, hey, I got a friend that sells a lot of upholstery. I'm your new sales guy. Teach me what to say and how to sell it. And I'll find out the pricing that he's paying. Let's put it together. And then I'm going to be an upholstery broker. There's no barrier to entry there. I just call you up one day. You have no idea. I've done a little legwork. I say, Leon, you know that $3 million you're buying? I can get that down to 2.5. How are you going to do that? Well, I work for this upholstery company out of Tennessee myself. But you're a broker. But you put the deal together.
Right.
You're going to go for it. They're going to go for it. So there's opportunities out there. Brokering is a great way to make money. It's a great way. And you can do it in almost any business. Think about it.
Yeah. As your man, I have never
insurance brokers,
this.
real estate brokers, print brokers. That's what I was, a print broker. So when I went out on my own, I didn't buy a shop, right? I brokered the first 10 years. And then after a while, I said, well, I'm going to get this printer because it'll give me more control. I can print out of my garage. I'll make twice the money because I'm not paying another manufacturer. And I'm not starting this massive print shop with 15 machines in a warehouse. I'm just going to get this one machine that probably takes about 50% of what I sell. And I'm going to just do this. And then I still broker out everything else that I don't do. So I was kind of walking both lines. I call it scooping the gravy. I bought that machine because that stuff on there is easy. I don't need to pay anyone to do that. I can do that.
So okay, my head is spinning with spin-off questions, but I want to stay on track here. So at this point, you don't have your college degree, which is so, there's such an emphasis in schools, right?
3-year fire science degree.
Well, you have your 3-year fire science degree.
I did not have a 4-year, but at 3 years, 75%.
Okay. So you didn't finish Cal Poly.
Correct.
You've got a ton of experience working at various grocery stores, right?
Yep.
Now, so the terminology and you're talking about the barriers and just your understanding. Obviously, you're giving a masterclass right now on how somebody can start their own brokerage or their own company. You obviously don't know this right out of the gate. So is this kind of trial and error? You're learning this as you go. Did your old man help you? How are you learning this right out of the gate? Because I can't imagine that there wasn't. And you mentioned, how your wife's pregnant at the time. Like, there's got to be some sort of doubt or that voice that we all get, right? That little thing, like, are you crazy? Go find something a little more secure. You're not gonna succeed.
I was lucky. I was born without that, and that's another thing that I would always encourage people is to believe in themselves. I just did, whether I was naive, cocky, whatever it is, but I was confident. I already had those clients. They told me they were coming with me. I believed them. A lot of your clients become your friends. I mean, treat them like a friend, and some of them maybe have completely different interests, and you're just courteous to them. But a lot of more than half of them, we talk about the football game or the barbecue or family or dogs or whatever.
Well, I asked because the phrase you used where your eyes were wide shut, right?
Yeah.
And it took Sean to come and ask you and say what he said in order for you to kind of see it differently.
I think you're okay. That's right. That brings up my point. Once you become a business owner, your eyes start to open. Mm-hmm. You really do. You're not just, oh, there's an alarm. I'm going to go. All right, boss wants me to stack the apples and put the bananas out. You start thinking for yourself. And then you get in conversations with people that own businesses as well. So you're maturing, you're growing, and it takes, I'm 64 now. So this is all back when I was 35. So, right. I don't know if I was the fastest learner, but everyone's a product of their environment. I'm a product of my environment. Coming from Silicon Valley, I just feel I could give people good advice. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I mean,
yeah, no. I think, man, this is gold right now, and especially there's somebody out there who has thought about it, who's considered this. But sometimes family people say, "Oh, my family's my biggest supporters," but they're also the harshest critics, right? And they're the ones that'll probably pull you back from taking this step forward that you're talking about. But I want to switch gears here for just a second because it seems like a good moment. We've talked about this, kind of hanging out and stuff, but I want to get this on here. And the world has changed, as you kind of alluded to. It was changing back then for Silicon Valley. It's since changed from then to now, but our school systems haven't, right? And you talked about not finishing school. I want to get, what's your take on public school systems? Do you feel they're prepping kids for, real world that they're actually stepping into?
Yeah, I'm probably with you and most other people. There seem to be a little archaic. We need to teach them real world skills. I remember, and I kid you not, my dad was, he could be a hothead. And I came home one time and I told him, he goes, I want to see your schedule at college, my first year of college. And he saw that I was taking a nutrition class. And we might have to hit explicit. He got so upset. And here's a very smart guy. He got so upset. He goes, God damn it. Why don't you just take a course in wiping your ass, you idiot? And we look, and he learned to laugh at that years later too. It's one of the funniest jokes we have in our family, that he was so naive, and it was a new thing, is nutrition, right? Talking about, what you are what you eat. They should be teaching nutrition, growing vegetables, maybe not media relations, but understanding, the media, how it's coming at you, and everyone in the media has got an angle. And all the fake stuff, the AI, the political, fakeness from both sides. That's the school's got to have some classes on that. Who really, really cares about the American Indian War? I forgot all about it. To me, maybe some recent history, if an elective, if you want to learn about all that stuff.
Yeah.
But why are you grinding out an hour a day in history for a whole semester and putting kids to sleep?
Yeah. And, with that, there's definitely an episode for a different day, but, these majors that people pursue, all the prep stuff and all the elective stuff that they have to take just to get to whatever the primary major is that they're trying to achieve. So do you kind of think traditional college still makes sense for most people?
No, I mean, if I had a son, now my daughter went to 4 years at San Diego University, and she's doing nothing with her degree. We only had one daughter, and I think a lot of kids at 18, they still need to ripen on the vine. It's great to get them out of the house in a college situation with other kids. Some kids are focused, most aren't.
Right.
I mean, some kids really use that time wisely. We knew our daughter wasn't going to do that. We'd spent the money. She wasn't a goof off or a big drinker or anything like that, but she just was not ready to make a decision on any life career choice. So she went and did that.
Well, it's kind of an unrealistic expectation that's 18-year-old is going to pick a career for the rest of their life.
It's absolutely unrealistic. Yeah. Some people are blessed and they know, and they can take care of college, but what percentage? It's got to be low. So you have trade schools, certainly a junior college. You just live at home, save some money, take a couple of classes, some electives, anything interests you. Something to buy some time instead of just saying, okay, this 4-year college is going to cost us $150,000. How about you go for 2 years, we save 75, and maybe we have a down payment on a house or something.
Well, I'm definitely a proponent of the military. I think it's a cheat code in life, to be honest with you. I think there's a misconception on what the military is and what they offer. Overwhelmingly, all the movies are war, and there's this really negative aspect of it, but there's so much more to it. And when you talk about trade schools, which I'm another huge proponent of, and one thing that AI is not going to replace anytime soon, it's not going to be your electrician, it isn't going to put stucco on your house or fix your plumbing. Yeah, trade schools in the military, I feel, are the absolute best ways to go. So
that's phenomenal, and with all the perks that I've heard they give you, I'm not well versed on it like you are, but I do know that is a phenomenal avenue to look at.
Well, right out of the gate, if I'm not knocking college. I know a lot of people think like, oh, this guy hates college. No, it's not necessarily that. I just think the way our system is set up, it's too early to take this. Make a kid choose at 16, 17. They commit at 18, and this is, for you mentioned earlier, you were in your 30s when you you talk to Sean and pull the trigger on this thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you're talking to, a kid is
almost a decade.
yeah, more than a decade. And it's like, hey, come up with what you want to. And by the way, it's going to cost all this fucking money. And, you're taking the burden. Your parents are taking the burden on this. It just isn't realistic. Do you think we're teaching kids how to think or what to think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know the college wants to teach you what to think. You got to watch out about the indoctrination. That's just my opinion. I know it's not everyone else's opinion, but they have their angle, and it's a democratic angle. It might be turning. Charlie Kirk was turning that a little bit.
Yeah,
he was trying to bring a different perspective to college campuses, and that's why he got so much kickback and blowback, and then ultimately lost his life because of that. But those crowds were listening to reason, and they were growing. And so hopefully the pendulum is swinging the other way. I don't mind which way you vote, but just try to understand what's real and what's not.
Yeah. It's interesting to me, like with the Charlie Kirk argument, because he definitely brought the attention to what these colleges are doing. And I would have these similar conversations with just people who I know, right? Not like public forums like what he was doing. But there was a lot of blowback. There was a lot of blowback with how people received that sort of news. And I wonder if, like, okay, I'm talking to this student who's going to this school or wants to go to this school, or their parents who are paying for it, and they would get so offended. And I wonder, is that more of the fact that there is this ideal that we are fed from the moment, you go to elementary school or grade school or whatever, like you have to go to college, you have to do this. If you don't, you're kind of a failure. So we all kind of believe this hype. And now here we are in 2025 and you're like, man, it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And you are living proof of this, which is why I knew I wanted to sit and have this conversation with you, because what you're talking about is real life.
Yeah.
Versus the crap that I think most colleges are pumping into these kids' heads.
Yeah, and just the college dream that they sell. I'm not against it if you're going to use it, right? That can absolutely help you. You go to Harvard or Stanford, that's going to pay off, and you can't get in there unless you're serious. But Chico State, San Diego State, what percentage of kids there are going to go out and use their degree? I mean, you can find those statistics on Google, and it's very low. Yeah. Extremely low.
That's a great point. The Ivy League schools, I mean, there's still definitely things that higher learning is great for, right? Engineering, medical school, things like that. Be honest, I'm not even sure becoming a lawyer is such a great gig these days, but what skills, like what real skills do you wish schools focused on, either like high school level or college level?
I haven't given that too much thought. I know that, let's just talk about the high school level. Nutrition, right? That's important for your whole life. Don't start a bad diet. I did, and I took nutrition for a while and I got onto a good diet, and I don't know, I kind of drifted off, but nutrition.
You think Big Farm has something to do with that? Like, is it in their interest that everybody knows how to eat right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
no, I know. I mean, high school, why not teach these kids life skills? So, as I said, nutrition. There should be some sort of class about the media. Propaganda is everywhere. These kids are getting blasted with propaganda from both sides, from 10 other companies. Everyone's got propaganda. And the way that people market now is propaganda. Just pick one thing. And if you want to, like when they started wanting to sell kale, who likes kale? Nobody likes kale.
Nobody likes kale.
But they had a push, man. Blah, blah, blah. It's a superfood. Right. And it's in all these drinks. Get this kale drink. And they would load it with sugar. And so it tasted good. You thought,
man, kale tastes awesome.
Yeah, kale tastes awesome, right? So what's wrong with teaching kids that? Don't believe something you see on the internet, on TV. Show them examples. And it doesn't have to be both. It doesn't have to be a political thing, left and right, although I think that's important, but also media. show them that, hey, look, you got to think on your own. Don't listen to these people and turn your mind off and take it. So I think in high school, those are good things. You can hit a little history. Obviously, you need math, reading, some of those things. I don't know. What are some of the classes that just history was one that I hated?
Well, so I actually enjoy history, but certain time frames, right?
Yeah,
I don't need to know
American Indian War.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain parts that
the Roman Empire, okay.
It isn't really significant to what I do day in, day out, or anyone who I even know for that matter.
How much do you remember? I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, I mean, when they focus so much on dates or one person in particular, it's like, how does that help me? I feel like it's fluff. I feel it's bullshit.
What was the name of the general?
Right. But I suppose, there's this argument that you got to keep people in the middle class and the low class, right? Because we need people to do other jobs. If everyone's the financial healthy guru, then who's going to do the jobs that nobody wants to do? I'm not the conspiracy theorist. I do kind of lean towards that the education systems are set up a certain way to keep people maybe not stupid, but to not teach them everything that's really going to help them.
Yeah, maybe. I hadn't thought about that.
Right. But you've built something that's lasted, and I think that's rare. We see a lot of businesses start, not a lot of businesses make it. So what has kept you going when most people would have quit?
Oh, I was lucky. Like I said, I started this business with plenty of clients. I did what I said. I say what I did. I can't think of any time I ever screwed anyone. There's probably been maybe 6 hiccups, like, I blew that. I'm so sorry.
Well, give me your worst.
Oh, the worst was I was very young. It was bad. It was really bad. So, and a matter of fact, I hadn't even gone on my own yet. I was working for this company, this big graphic company, and Yahoo was the first search engine. Google wasn't around. And Yahoo, their headquarters was right next to us. And so I went over there, and those were 2 Stanford guys that started Yahoo. And he said, okay, there's this thing called Black Friday. I said, yeah, I heard of it. And he goes, we want to put a sign on top of every taxi in San Francisco that says, shop online, inside, ride for free. So they were going to put like a laptop chained in the back seat of these taxi cabs with the Yahoo website so you could shop and you get a ride for free. So they basically paid for every taxi in San Francisco. I think I did 300 signs. So there was 300 taxis. Okay. And so on Thanksgiving night, all the taxis about 2 a.m. pull into the station and they swap the signs out. Mm-hmm. And so these things were going to roll out at 5 a.m, picking up customers and taking them out on Black Friday. And so I had a great Thanksgiving, went to bed, slept like a baby. And a couple days later, I called my client and said, how'd it go? I think it was Monday or Tuesday the next. He said, not too well. It was really calm, dude. What do you mean not too well? He goes, well, we had a little problem. Oh, what kind of problem do you have? He goes, they were the wrong kind of signs. We couldn't use them. What do you mean? And we had given them these signs that they slip down in slots. It was, I don't know, maybe 24 inches wide by a foot tall. And they're supposed to slip down these slots that were on top of the taxi. But I guess a couple years earlier, the taxis, they took all those off and they put this triangle on top and they put a sticker on one side and a sticker on the other side. It's a long triangle. So they just needed stickers, but they had these signs, right? And so I guess the head lady at Yahoo, the taxi cab had their number because this was some, $1 million.
I would imagine.
We're going to take every taxi and all the advertising and we're going to pay for everyone. We're going to not just pay for the advertising. We're going to pay for all the rides in San Francisco. And they call her up and say, yeah, we're down here and these signs aren't going to work. What? Her and her husband, they were big execs. I had heard that they had this huge dinner, all these people. They cleaned up when everyone left. She went to bed. She got a call at 2 a.m. It was pouring rain. And she was, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know. You tell me what to do, lady. So her and her husband They drove up to San Francisco, went to every 7-Eleven they could, bought clear tape, and they were strapping them on top of the taxi, and it did not go well. I never heard. I said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, Glenn." Okay. And I got the phone. I never got another job from them at Yahoo. But that was the worst thing that ever happened. And that was I don't know, maybe 96. I think I was real young in the business. I think it was maybe 96.
So was that just more of a research type thing?
It was actually my boss said he knew what they needed. I said, "Hey, boss."
Oh, you said this was before you broke off, right?
Oh yeah, it was my boss, and he goes, "No, this is the sign. I'm positive, Mark. We've done these before." I was okay, so I told my client, "This is what we're going to do," and I was too young. I just took my boss's word for it.
Sure, yeah.
And he was wrong.
Well, I mean, God, the lesson in that, I mean, doing your research, especially you start going on your own, you're running your own business.
That's brutal.
So do you believe there's a single guiding principle behind your specific longevity?
Just customer service. I mean, when you get on the phone and you get a robot, don't you hate that? Or you get someone on a script, you hate it. You just want someone, how can I help you? What can I do? I'll get that for you. And so every time I take a job, someone sends me artwork, I confirm, email, I got it, I'll be in touch. Mm-hmm. I always say, I got it, I'll be in touch. And then if say you get it on Monday and something's due on Friday, I send all my clients something on Wednesday. Say, "Hey, we're coming along good. It'll definitely ship Friday, and I'll send you tracking, or I'll deliver it Friday." And then you did. But if they give you something on Monday, don't let them sit there and worry about it. And it's Friday. What if you forgot about it? And then Friday comes along, they ask where it is, and you haven't even started on it. So great customer service. If you can do great customer service, I never had to make sales calls after a while. I mean, after about a year and a half, that was just great customer service, and people tell other people. Mm-hmm. And, just in my business, because I was working for these big companies like, eBay, they've got maybe 100 buyers on one floor, and their job is just to buy stuff.
Wow.
All year long. They're going to buy something today. They're going to buy something next week. They're going to keep buying and buying and buying. So if you take care of them, people follow the path of least resistance. It's not even their money. There's a budget. If it's in the budget and you take care of it, you got the next job.
Customer service is such a dying art. Rochelle and I, we talk about that all the time. Whether you go to a restaurant, you go to a store, you order something online, whatever. The people, what you're saying is exactly right. Because the ones, you don't even have to go out. You don't have to kiss my ass or anything. But something as simple as following up, even addressing you by your name. Like if they somehow see it on your credit card or I don't know. But even just using your name, it's that personal touch. How do you teach people that? It's just manners. I mean, when I talk to people, and I talk to my wife this way, and I've talked to other people, either the light's on or the light's off. You can tell someone's, lights off. This is the wrong guy. We'll see. What do you mean we'll see? I got a job. It's got to get done. We'll see is not going to get you that. I'm not going to give you that job. Go find someone who said, yes, I can do that. I mean, some people don't understand that. And you see them and you just, okay, whatever, walk away. That's just when I would hire. And I think that all people should see this. When you have an employee or you're thinking about hiring someone or even if you're just going to use this vendor, the way they walk across the room, are they slow, leaning back, taking their time? That's who they are. Mm-hmm. Me, I always was leaning forward, walking fast because I was a hustler. So I call it that lean forward. You got to lean forward or are you leaning back? Yeah. I like that.
I mean, if you want the business.
So you won't, it sounds like you won't spend time or waste time, I should say, trying to take somebody who doesn't have that lean forward personality. You just move on to the next one and try to find that diamond in the rough.
Yeah. Unless you're, that's all you got. Then you got to give them a pep talk or something. Get the cattle prod out or something. Oh my gosh.
Well, any mistakes? I mean, you talk about the one from San Francisco with the cap sign, which is an awesome story. I don't think I've heard that one, but what mistakes have taught you the most throughout your career?
Yeah, it's always mistakes that teach you the most. No, I mean, we just had a production error, this or that. One time I was being generous to this really big company. I was being very generous to them, and they asked me if they could drop off this big crate and hold it for 2 weeks, and then hold the stuff that's in it, and then put my stuff in the crate. And so we did, and they trucked it across the United States for a big show. And we had slip sheeted these graphics. These were very expensive graphics. And they drove this truck across the United States in 110-degree weather. And the back of the truck wasn't air conditioned. Everything melted. That wasn't good. Those are that. You know what? That's my second worst. And it doesn't. And the third one is like nothing. Like it was a day late or something like that. I mean. Those two.
That one's pretty bad, and the San Francisco one's horrible.
Oh, the San Francisco one. I thought they were going to, I thought like maybe some sniper was going to come get me. They're going to take me out or something. I don't know how much. And I stopped asking questions. It was so bad. So I just kind of.
And I don't even know if you know this, but I'm just curious. Like when they were paying for the cab rides, was that just automatic? Like, hey, on this particular day, we're just paying for it, whether they use.
Yeah. How much do you want per cab?
Yeah.
Right. This cab's going to generate $800 or $2,000, and we want 300 cabs, $60,000. We'll pay it.
I suppose for Yahoo, that's a drop in the buck, but still, that's an expensive lesson to learn. So if somebody listening wants to leave traditional big business, right, where you were at, but they're younger, okay, than where you were when you started, what's the very first step they should take?
You got to ask yourself what you're good at. What are you willing to do? Do you have the moxie to go out on your own? Or do you want to work for someone? And if you do work for someone, what's the end game? There's nothing wrong with working for a company and retiring, as long as there's a good pension and this and that. Who was it? Someone just told me that their child was going to get a job at the state of California, and it was my buddy Tim. His son-in-law, who's maybe 34, just got on to the state of California, and he's only making $80,000, and he's a guy with a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. He's making $80,000 a year. He goes, everything's paid for, all his Medicare, this, that, and his retirement, his pension and everything. And I told Tim, I said, if that was me, I would be very, very concerned about a California pension. I would not believe it. I wouldn't go for it. I'm going to put my whole life into a California pension. What have they shown you? They're going to lose it. They're going to come to you and what are you going to say? It's over. It's done. You don't have a pension. You get 10% of your pension. They've done it to other people. Mm-hmm. California will certainly do it. I mean, they're going to do that. We know that. Yeah. They've already pulled back on the police and fire. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, they try to all the time, yeah.
Well, yeah, because they overpromised them. Yeah. I mean, cities were going bankrupt when guys started at 50 to retire, and it's not passable. What about you?
Well, so it isn't. Yeah, I mean, it's expensive. Any city that tries to incorporate and the first thing they look at is their first responders. When you're looking at law enforcement, when you're looking at fire, that's going to come with pension. It's not the sort of job that people, I mean, sure, there's a passion to it, right? But there is also some strategy. Like they're good paying jobs overall. Not every state, but California pays well in law enforcement and fire. And the pensions and the medical benefits is what draw people in. But it drains
early
the
retirement.
State. Yeah, earlier than the average person.
Way
right?
earlier.
Yeah, because now they, like in law enforcement, they've changed it to their early to mid 50s. Okay, which is it used to be 3% at 50. So somebody leaving at 50 years old, I mean, shit, you can still have another career after that.
Absolutely.
Right? And the state's paying for as long as you're sticking around. So yeah, it's an expensive business. Here's the downside: if you don't offer that, what's going to happen?
You're going to lose the cream of the crop.
Sure, you're losing interest for sure. People hear shows like this, they grab advice from a guy like you, and they're like, you know what? That makes a lot of fucking sense. Why am I going to go and risk everything I have? It isn't just the losing your life, even though that's a very realistic threat, but with cameras everywhere and microphones everywhere and political opposition and so many people with the gotcha mentality. There's so much more at stake for someone to lose, not just in law enforcement, but in fire and even in the medical field, right? There's that I got you, because they know these organizations have deep pockets. And unfortunately, that's a reality for that world. That flip side, though, if you don't offer the big benefit at the end of a career, what you're going to get is nothing. You're not going to get people who apply.
You're not going to get the talent. You're going to get leftovers.
You're going to get people who are just so desperate that they're like, okay, fine, I'll go for this. But now what sort of work are they going to put in? What sort of quality? We're going to get that guy who doesn't lean forward. Right? As you were saying. Yeah. You're going to get the cop equivalent of that. Who's going to turn a blind eye? Who's not going to be proactive?
Donut Danny's only going to he's going to eat donuts for 30 years and retire, man.
With a pension. So
with a pension.
Yeah. So there's definitely politicians who will scream that, because they think it sounds good and they look at the money that they're going to potentially save. They're not calculating the outcome of what's going to happen. And it will happen. We're seeing it already. Yeah. You defund or you cut budgets, you take people out of areas, you're going to get to shit like San Francisco. And I love the city of San Francisco. There's San Diego, Los Angeles. You start looking at these major metro areas that have these, they're not even homeless problems, because homeless gives some sort of thought like it was a choice. These are people who have
mental.
They have mental issues. They are drug addicts. They have all sorts of problems. They have no intentions of cleaning themselves up, and these cities aren't doing anything about it. And you're going to see that start to duplicate itself in smaller areas.
Some of them give them free needles and drugs.
Well, I mean, San Francisco has been the poster child of just how to ultimately screw up.
Oh my God.
And deal with these issues. And LA's not too far behind. So, but I know you got me on a tangent on that one. It's definitely a subject for another day. So when we think about legacy, what comes to mind?
Oh, geez. There's no legacy for me. I just, my legacy is with my wife and my child. That's it. And they know I'm a hard worker, that I'm doing the best to provide. And my dad lived a long life. He had 4 kids. He had a 5th stepchild, was remarried. His wife's still alive. I'm never going to inherit anything. And neither will my wife. So we had everything we made our own. My legacy, I'd like to leave my daughter something, just because life's tough. People gave me, my dad gave me a lot of a hand up on education, great father, all that stuff. It's not always about money at all. And, so that's it. Just be a good guy. Don't do anything stupid. As long as they respect what I did, that's it.
Well, I think that's a hell of a legacy to leave behind, not just for your daughter and for your wife, but for people listening, because I think it's rare, or at least it isn't as advertised as some other things are, to run across a guy like you with the knowledge and the experience, that institutional knowledge, right, of being an entrepreneur, starting your own business in a very competitive world, right? The advice you're given is not taught in schools. So this is something that you have to learn from somebody like you,
absolutely,
who has been through it, who has made the mistakes, who has seen what worked, what doesn't. I think it's a hell of a legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I was told, get a mentor, and I really didn't have a mentor, but there were a couple of older guys that just, spewed out advice to me, and without me asking, but I listened to it. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of kids come by my warehouse, they're delivery truck drivers. And this one kid asked me, "Can I ask you a question?" Yeah. He goes, "What's your business? How'd you get started out of this?" And he's looking for a better life.
Sure.
And he's asking questions. I said, "Kid, I will talk to you all day long." And we talked for 15, 20 minutes, and I started off with, barrier to entry. Like, if you want to start your own business, remember, you probably don't have $200,000 to buy a big machine. So you look into jobs, and that was a kid that 15 years from now, he's going to be fine. That kid was looking, and he was asking. He just met me. He was just delivering a load, but he goes, "I ask people all the time." I said, "Oh, you're ahead of the game already."
Oh, big time.
You're ahead of the game already.
Well, he probably learned more in that 15 minutes than he would have with a 2-year associate's degree, right?
Absolutely, right? Yeah. So
What do you want your kid or this generation, next generation to know that you didn't know at their age?
We're in crazy times now. And I would just say this to anyone out there. How can you dispute this? Technology's here. Now, I'm coming from Silicon Valley, and I kind of wanted to wind this conversation into some stuff out of Silicon Valley because that I am a product of Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And so we're going to have to remember this question because I'm going to do this tangent.
Okay.
This thing here is, so I didn't know, we had Apple stock when we were younger, and everyone knows that exploded. They became the richest company in the world. We sold it about a month. It didn't do anything for like 4 years that we owned it. We were young. We sold it about a month before the iPhone came out. I just got
we need to add that to that list.
Yeah, I was on the launch pad, just got burned up when it took off. And we're like, oh my God. So we talked about that for years. And no, I kid you not. And then I kid you not, when Tesla came out and they said, Tesla's going to be the first electric car. I told my wife, I said, there is no way in the world the government will let this electric car company fail. We're buying Tesla stock. I'm telling you, it's going to take off. Okay. So that day it went on sale. It opened up for $45, but you weren't allowed to buy it if you were just regular Joe like me. By the end of the day, you could buy it, and it was $375 a share. I was so upset because, it's how it works. I didn't buy it. If I had spent $10,000 on Tesla stock at $375 a share, now you remember it split many, many times.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That would probably be worth about $800,000 right now, maybe $1 million. It's just crazy. It went through the roof.
Yeah.
It went through the roof. Another thing that I was at, I think I told you that I was at Facebook. I walked into Facebook when they just got to San Jose. When he came from New York, and that's what he did. He was at Harvard. They said, "You want to blow this Facebook thing up? You got to move to Silicon Valley, because all the venture capitalists are in Palo Alto," and that was right by my house. So he rented this office space at a big business complex. There were all sorts of business in there. He was just one guy. Mm-hmm. It's like renting an apartment in an apartment building. He was just renting this space in a business complex. And it was around the back. It was nothing special. I walked in there one day because they wanted me to print some stuff. And this girl goes, "Oh, that's where Mark sits, right over there." And there were like 5 computers against a wall. And he was just one of them. He wasn't in some bullet glass chamber.
Right.
They were just starting. And I didn't buy any Facebook stock. I didn't. And the craziest one of all, because Tesla they surpassed Apple and became the richest ever. So Apple and Tesla, I should have had that stock, didn't buy it. Then right before I went out on my own, we were working in Santa Clara, right off of San Tomas and Walsh Road. And you can look it up right there on the corner. We were directly across the street. There was an empty lot, and they built these 4 buildings, and they called it was a new company called NVIDIA. NVIDIA is now worth $5 trillion. They're richer than Apple. They're richer than Tesla. They're richer than Google. NVIDIA. And I sat there and didn't buy that stock. So what I would say to kids, because when I was young, everyone was put $2,000 away a year and you'll have $1 million. What I would say, and I have been saying to kids, whatever you have, start investing. Just anything. Mm-hmm. And invest in technology. If you know something else about some other stock, and that's fine. But where's technology going? Where could it possibly be going but up, and away?
Right. It's everything.
It's up, and away. I mean, this is one satellite company I invested in is up, 800%. And it's they're producing AI-powered satellites. Satellites have been up in orbit since the 60s. They don't have AI technology. They're replacing all these satellites with high-powered AI technology. So this company's selling that. How are they going to fail? How's that possibly going to fail? Robotic industries. How is this going to fail? It's not going to fail. So you got to go with the trends, and technology is leading the way. I mean, we are really full steam ahead technology. So if you don't have some technology in your portfolio, wake up.
Yeah, so this I'm gonna, if I can, I want to throw this story in because it aligns exactly with what you're saying.
Please do.
So when I was in high school, my senior year, I was taking government. Okay, and we talked about whether we need this shit or not. Right? I can't even remember what I covered or what my teacher covered in that. But I remember he would go through and he would kind of assign us whatever it was, a project for like the week, like, hey, study this guy or study this thing. But he would quickly slide that off and he'd be like, okay, guys, now he started this at the beginning of the year and he kept it going every week. He assigned each kid in the class 2 stocks. And this was, well before apps and iPhones and even computers for that matter. Yeah. It was just the newspaper. So he would bring out that boring section of the newspaper that no teenager was looking at.
Absolutely not.
And it had, the print was, I don't even know what size font it was.
8,
it was like
maybe 7.
Absolute smallest font, right? And he would just go through and I got assigned Walmart and Coke.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So it was like, that was your stock. You held on to it no matter what. And he had literally monopoly money, and he gave us $200 each. He was like, here's 100 for Walmart, here's 100 for Coke. And everybody had the same thing to do, right? And each week we would check in and be like, okay, where are you at? And he would break it out, whether you made money or whether you lost
and take
money.
it back or give it out.
So by the end of the year, I was up on both. I couldn't tell you. I forgot the numbers, but I know I was up because I had all this extra monopoly money. And probably one of the greatest lessons that I could have learned in school that I did not take advantage of. In fact, I didn't get into the stock market till well over a decade plus later. But he recognized back then that this government history math, even certain math, like you're not going to use 90% of it, right? And nowadays you got calculators and chat, GPT to do it all. What you need to learn is how are you going to stay relevant? How can you build upon your own success?
Yeah.
You think you would have made those issues if someone would have given you that advice?
No.
When you're leaving school?
No. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the problem is sometimes it rings on deaf ears for kids because no one's got $2,000 a year to put in.
Yeah, but you don't even need that though.
No, you don't. No, right? You don't. That was just kind of when I was growing up, $2,000 a year into some general fund, and you'll have $1 million at 50.
Teach a kid, rather than the French Indian War.
Yeah.
Teach them what compound interest is.
Yeah.
Right?
Compound interest is our friend.
Most people, I would say maybe 30 and younger, have no idea what compound interest is.
Yeah. Finance has got to be in there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some teachers make it a lot more interesting than others. And, hopefully you don't get some boring monotone guy telling you about finance, you go to sleep on it. Because, man, how's that not a life skill? How is that not a life skill? That's absolutely huge.
Yeah. So what do you think most people misunderstand about success?
What success is? It's not money. I'll tell you one thing that I knew. Oh my God. So many people in Silicon Valley that had, 100 million, 150 million, make 20 million. There were kids retiring at 28 all the time. And one day I was coming home from work. I was stuck in traffic and I started thinking about it. And I kind of getting pissed. Why didn't I ever make that money? How come I ever make 5-6 million? And I literally drove maybe another 2 miles. I said, okay, just relax. You're starting to feel sorry for yourself. The reason is, you can answer it yourself, is because you never tried to. I never tried to. I always wanted to make enough money to pay all my bills and have a little left over and hang out with my friends on the weekend and have a good time and buy a few things. I was never shooting for the stars. I got exactly what I wanted to. I really did. I executed exactly my plan. I wasn't trying to make millions of dollars. And if that's what you want, that's fine. Just know that doesn't buy happiness. I mean, you see millionaires all the time committing suicide, getting divorced. Money doesn't buy happiness, right? A good family keep you grounded, happiness, and a good friend base, not having a crappy job that you hate. That's success. Trying to stay healthy, trying to make it to your 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
That to me is success. Money alone is not success.
Yeah, we're right back there at nutrition, man. When you talk about that, making it, the longevity, making it 70s, 80s, 90s, probably a good time to pull it, but
Probably not in the cards for me.
but that's, that we only get one ticket for this ride, man.
That's
so
it.
make it count.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still got a lot of stuff to do. Like I said, I'm 64. I want to start traveling. I have not, because I've always just been grinding at work. And so, we went to Hawaii, we went to Vegas, and been in New York once and Florida once, but I haven't been to Europe.
Like Manhattan, New York, or just
No, we went into the big city, down Times Square and all that stuff.
So what's your big three on places that you want to visit?
I want to go to Italy for sure. I think I'd love to go to Ireland. And then I'd have to decide, is it Germany or Greece? I could be talked out of it, but Italy for sure.
Yeah. Now, what interests you about going to these places? Is it the history that that is associated with these countries, or is it the food? Like what draws you?
The food, the people. I'll look at some castles. I'm not going to spend the whole time, climbing mountains to look at castles. I want to, definitely look at some of the stuff because you'll get blown away. Like there's nothing like it in the United States. But I also want to enjoy the food and some good wine when I'm there, right? And just sit around and go, yeah, man, we're chowing down in Milan or something.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Where would you like to go?
Well, I've been pretty fortunate, and growing up as a military kid, we traveled around. I was born in England.
Okay.
We've been back, a few times, and then my own time in the military took me to Asia. But I think I've been to Italy, but I'd like to go back with Rochelle and really hit Greece. I think just everything I've ever seen, videos, photos.
Man, they make some videos at Greece you just cannot deny.
Yeah.
They might be winning the video game. Okay, take a look at all these places and what looks the most beautiful to you. I mean,
well, I'll tell you, it's either that or, God, what's the name of there's a few places that have it, like the little cabins on the water.
Like Bora Bora.
Bora Bora, yeah, exactly. Like something like that, completely off the grid. I don't want any cell service. I don't want anything like that. The other thing I'm a big fan of, growing up in England, my granddad would take us up to the Shetland Isles, and my family would go there too. Not the Shetland Isles, but just Scotland.
Okay.
And as a kid, I recognized how amazing it was, but I didn't appreciate it.
He didn't make you wear a skirt, did he? Or a kilt, excuse me.
It's a kilt.
It's a kilt. You wore one, I can tell.
But to go back and see that now, and to take my family to it, I've been pretty fortunate, but I didn't recognize how lucky I was as a kid. I'd love to go back now and kind of share it with Rochelle and my kids.
Yeah, you were lucky. You were very fortunate. Wow.
What else? You're looking at some notes there. What
I
else
was just
you got?
looking. I just wanted to
grab that mic there for you.
Sorry about that. I just I don't know. The one thing I wanted to touch on, and this is starting all over again from the very beginning, and
Sure.
I'm maybe keeping on point, but I wanted to, for people that don't know how Silicon Valley started, because it was really interesting. The reason Silicon Valley is because of Stanford University. Because in the 60s, they had the #1 electronic department in the country for all colleges. And the Japanese were heavily into electronics. And they would come here and they were trying to get talent and they brought money and they wanted to buy business. And so that became the epicenter for electronics in the world. Then these 4 guys left Stanford and they started a company called Fairchild Semiconductor. Mm-hmm. And they called them the Fairchild 4. That's when Silicon Valley, in the mid to late 60s, really, they started doing semiconducting, silicon wafers in Silicon Valley. And those guys all split up eventually, but they started companies like LSI Logic, National Semiconductor, Cisco Systems, all sorts of companies were birthed from those. And so for people that don't know, because I remember asking my dad, how come we became Silicon Valley? Well, why was it us? It was Stanford University. And that's why all those jobs went up there. I mean, if you're a kid and you're into technology, you got to look at going up there. It's costs a lot to live, but man, that's where it's at, and that's where it's going to continue to be at.
Well, okay, so here's, I guess, a friendly agree to disagree. So we're already seeing companies like Tesla leave California.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be the unicorn. I think because of how expensive California is and just the political landscape that these companies are facing, we recently saw In-N-Out, not a tech company, not in Silicon Valley, but a major California staple, get up, move their headquarters to the other side of the country. I think why this is your statement is so relevant right now is because this is the beginning of potentially the beginning of these big companies moving to other parts of the country. I do think most of them will stay here in the United States, but let's say that you're the 2025 equivalent of a young Mark, right? In Tennessee, South Dakota, Kansas, something like that. And Google moves out there. Now, what would a company, or Tesla in Tennessee, what would a company of that magnitude bring to that region? And can that young person, that young entrepreneur who thinks like this, but they're in bumfuck USA,
right,
they're like, I got no chance. So, yeah, maybe you can't move to Silicon Valley where it's ridiculously overpriced. Yeah. But you move to the next best thing, which is, I don't even know what town Tesla moved to in Tennessee, but I imagine there's going to be a shitload of businesses surrounding that plant.
Absolutely.
And I think this is just the beginning. I think we're going to see the dominoes start to fall. And can people take advantage of that?
Yeah. Yeah, they can. There's still massive talent, a mountain of talent in Silicon Valley. Some of the greatest minds of all time. And it's going to be king for a long time. Yeah. I mean, if you're out in Tennessee and, Google moves out there or Tesla moves out there and you get on with them, you can see where they go. Those are good companies. Those are great companies. The startups, I mean, I know they're everywhere. They're not just in Silicon Valley, but every time one of them seems to pop, seems like they were in Silicon Valley. Yeah, well, this is what it seems like. That's where all the venture capitalists are. But anything can happen anywhere. I just think that people, if you're looking for a career, maybe it's not technology for you, but you better make sure that technology is not going to take over that career. Mm-hmm. I mean, the trades, they need plumbers. They're saying that's the number one thing now is plumbers, that you'll never get rid of plumbers. You have to have plumbers. You have to have all these things. Laying phone lines, probably a thing of the past, dying out. They're just going through the airways with satellites and stuff like that. I mean, pipes in the ground, you're still going to need pipes. You still got to move the stuff.
Yeah. So. It's funny. So you mentioned NVIDIA, and their CEO was just on Rogan the other day, and they were talking about this. They were talking about AI and the jobs that are going to be replaced. So that is the next best thing, right? Everyone should be schooling themselves on AI. And he brought up, it was such a great point. It's that if your job, if your career path and occupation is task oriented, you're in trouble, right? Yeah. If it's, taking orders, Rochelle was just at she swung through a drive-through the other day. Yep. And the person taking the order was AI. That's how crazy it's taken, right? So if you have a task-oriented position, data entry, taking information, giving information, man, I think you're in trouble with AI. Yeah. Now, if you actually provide some sort of physical service, I think we're a way off. I know they've got the humanoid bots coming in. It seems to be the next big race. But I just think there's going to be jobs and whole career paths that stem from that next wave. So you got to keep your eye open for it.
I agree. Education is the number one thing. You got to keep yourself educated and, find some place where you can get some real literature on. You don't have to think of it yourself. Research. What's the next great career path with AI? Understand that AI is here going to take some away, and stay educated. You don't have to know it yourself. You just need to know someone that does know it. Yeah. That was the thing that I remember. I remember when I was young, and they took me to some sales classes. How do you overcome an objection, or something with a client, or if they ask you something you don't know? Always be honest. Say, I don't know that. I know the guy that does know that. I'll get with him and I'll get right back to you. I know he knows. So you now have, you've taken care of his issue. I don't have it right now. I'll get it for you. It's easy to get. I know the guy that knows that. So yeah, you gotta stay educated on what's happening, because things are happening so fast with careers.
All right, Mark, look, before we finish, I want to give you the floor. Okay. If you could leave the listeners with one message, one idea that they can carry into this week, what would it be?
Don't be lazy. Stay educated. Believe in yourself. You're worth. You can do so much better than you think you can. You'll surprise yourself. And if you always do what you've always done, you'll always have what you already have. So, sometimes you got to step out, and that's a cliche, when you step out of your comfort zone. But, if you're not where you're at, you got to do something different. And so do that thinking about a career. Gets back to barrier to entry. What's a good career path? And educate yourself, and you're going to be fine.
Yeah, the barrier entry. I love that, man. That's
and one last one.
Sure.
It has nothing to do with anything we said.
Okay.
My old boss said this to me.
Not the guy with the heart problem.
No. It was the next boss. He was a manager at another Alpha Beta, and every day at like 1:00 he had to walk the money bag to the Bank of America, which is across the parking lot. It was a big bag of cash, and he had to go deposit it. And so he'd take a different person every day. And one day he chose me. He said, "Come on, Mark, we're going to the bank." And he's holding this big bag of cash, and we're walking across the parking lot. And he said, "You know why I chose you today?" And I said, "I have no idea." He goes, "There's two people in the world I trust." He goes, "Myself and you. And I'm not so sure about you." He goes, "Don't forget that, kid." Thank you for having me.
Hey, Mark, listen, thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty, man. That's to me, that's just it's just so important when you're sharing a message like this.
That's what I mean. I give you the naked truth, and that's why I'm not wearing clothes today, and I am.
We'll post those photos. Now, this is why we do it, man. To learn from people who have lived it, stumbled through it, and came out better on the other side. Like that kid who was delivering the truckload to you and bothered you for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that kid learned a hell of a lot that day, and he's going to remember the way Sean spoke with you for 15 minutes, and you are quoting him years and years later.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. If I could have bought stock in that kid, I would have bought a couple of shares.
Yeah. Good for him, man. I will hope the best for him.
All right. Thank you, Leon. I appreciate it. Be good.
Hey, to everyone listening, remember, it's not what you do or even how you say it, but it's how you make people feel. And I think we kind of covered that today. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on Recalibrate.